It is decision week. Where will Albert Simien and Caden Moss go, and so many more? We have a lot of recruiting to get to.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst, and thank you for joining me once again on the Portal Live show each night at 9 Eastern, Sunday through Thursday right now until we get to the recruiting season. Then it'll go to Monday through Thursday. We're having fun, and tonight we're going to talk about two big guys, Albert Simien and Caden Moss, why offensive linemen are so important and why their decisions, both expected on Friday, can kind of change not only the programs they commit to, but the ones they don't as well. We're going to talk about the latest commitments, Michigan schedule. Going to have a little conversation about BYU fans talking some smack, which is ironic considering they're BYU, but that's what we'll get to. The Michigan schedule will be fun, though, in the chat. Going to have some comments about college football and what's going on with the 5 for 5. We'll get into all that later on in the show. But first, I do want to start with Big Albert and with Mr. Caden Moss. It really doesn't matter which one. But since Ole Miss has had such a good week, and it's great to see a new program in the SEC come up, I'll start with Ole Miss and Caden Moss. It sounds like that's where he's going. That's at least the scuttlebutt. LSU and Oregon and Ohio State and all these other programs made their run at him, Kentucky. But it sounds like Ole Miss. When was the last time Ole Miss was able to land multiple really good offensive linemen in the same class? Not guys that, 3-star, whatever, like guys that are borderline 5-star to 5-star range. They just got Antonio Berry today, interior lineman, probably, might be able to play right tackle, out of Tupelo, Mississippi. I've seen him play as well. Really good football player, another national recruit. Bama and a number of other schools really wanted him. He's now a part of the Rebels class. But Caden Moss is arguably the best player in the state of Mississippi. Great kid, too. 6'5", 320 pounds, team-first attitude, always positive, wants everybody around him to get as much exposure as possible. He's the guy you want in your locker room. I think this is important not just for Ole Miss, but it's also a message to the rest of the SEC as well as outside the conference that, hey, Ole Miss isn't going to be a flash in the pan and kind of fall off to the side once Trinidad Chambliss takes a hike. This will be his last year of college football coming up before he goes to the National Football League. Many probably think that he's just a guy that's going to bypass into the bliss of, Ole Miss war, and they'll go back to being 7-5, 8-4. I don't think so, and it's for a different reason. And they're not going to just throw it all over the place. They're getting linemen now. If they get Caden Moss, again, they're expected to Friday, that's going to change their program. LSU, Bama, and some of the other programs, they're having to find linemen in different places. They're having to take some kids that maybe they didn't normally get because, honestly, LSU and Alabama just destroy the state of Mississippi historically. And a few of the kids will stay in state, go to Mississippi State and Ole Miss too, don't get me wrong, but historically speaking, that state gets rated pretty hard. As for Albert Simien, he's from one state south of where Caden Moss is. He's from Southwest Louisiana. He goes to Sam Houston High School down near Lake Charles. Not an area that you normally think of kids leaving home, but the predictions are coming in for Notre Dame to get him. Ole Miss and LSU and Texas A&M and every other program in the South has recruited him, but it looks like Notre Dame. A&M was the leader for the longest time, but he just took a visit to the Irish this past weekend. Notre Dame's already got a really good offensive line class, and they get one pretty much every year. But he would be a potential 5-star to be added to the class for the Irish. And I don't think anybody's going to catch A&M's class for number one, at least not in my opinion. It's possible, but unlikely. But they're probably going to end up number 2 if they get the big fella. Albert is a great fit. I had a chance to be around him at the Under Armour All-American game this past January. Happy-go-lucky guy, but he's all about business when the whistle blows. Long way to go with technique, like most offensive linemen. But when he puts his hands on somebody, he's got really heavy hands, and he's still got a frame that he can add a lot of weight. He wasn't even, I don't think, 290 when I was around him. He was 285, 288, something like that. And just a big-bodied kid that could move. Kind of an old-school guard that can get out in space and pull. Probably going to be just as good in the screen game. and just as good on the outside. Like if he wraps around That's not a guy you want to be squared up with. He's such an athletic young man that even if you're a really good linebacker or something, you better find a way to get an edge. You don't want to go through his chest. Good luck. And he's just going to get bigger. He'll probably play at 310 here in the next couple of years. So I think he's an NFL player. I've got him as a top 20 guy in the country on my board. And I think Albert Simien is pretty much top 50 by every metric, depending on who you want to ask. I didn't look it up as far as ESPN and all the different rankings, but pretty much everybody thinks he's a 5-star right there on that edge. Both are really good players, though, again, and it's just a showing of the times, how they change. LSU, it's not like they're struggling to get kids. They just got a really good offensive lineman out of Pennsylvania. It's so weird. The kids are just going further away, and you don't know where they're going. And then at other times, like Caden Moss, like Mississippi kids, for the longest time, have evaded Ole Miss and Mississippi State, especially in the trenches, and headed to Bama, headed to Tennessee, headed to LSU, headed to Georgia. Well, it looks like probably Caden Moss is going to stay home too. So how does this change the SEC? I think it's flatlining a little bit. I really do. A&M obviously is recruiting out of its mind right now, but Texas is pretty good still. Georgia's class is just on the borderline of top 10. Ole Miss has stepped up. Auburn's class is very underrated, but it's a big conglomerate right there with A&M out in front. I think they have the number one class in the country, but you're going to see even more balance in the SEC if possible. Could that possibly bring down the league? Because much as I don't agree with it, the College Football Playoff Committee, even though it changes year to year, it seems like losses are the most important thing to them. I don't think that bodes very well for the SEC, although, again, I think they should look at it a little bit differently with strength of schedule. That's just my opinion. But, again, I think Caden Moss is going to Ole Miss. I think, well, based on everything that I've read and the intel that I got, and then all the predictions came out on rivals, et cetera, Wilt Fong, et cetera. Albert Simien, I thought he was going to go to A&M, but everybody's saying it's going to be Notre Dame now. Those are some really big ones to kind of talk about. When we come back, I'm going to run down the list of today's bigger commitments. I'm going to talk about what's next in the latest recruiting scuttlebutt, and a reminder before I even go into break. July 1st, Rivals is doing like an all-day thing. They've got, I want to say, 10 guys, give or take, that are going to be doing commitments on July 1st. So mark that on your calendar. Look it up. I'm sure they're going to have plenty of articles and reminders on social media. Some of the kids that aren't committed yet, they're probably going to be then. So we'll get into that. That is next right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't about talent. It's about having everyone working towards the same goal. And that's true in sports, just like it is in business. Look at Texas A&M. Their class is fantastic, but they have a staff of recruiters that you see forward. But the people in the back office deserve a lot of credit too. That is its own business system. That is its own integration of how to get all the intelligence in one spot to make sure they go after the right people. And it's why they've got a great class. To that end, Odoo does the same kind of thing. Great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/locked on. That's odoo.com/locked on. All right, let's talk a little bit about the most recent commitments. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up a commit/decommit/recommit. Now, if you're like, what are you talking about? Benjarvius Shoemaker out of Choctaw County in Mississippi had been committed to the Rebels for a long time. He committed, stayed committed, then out of the blue, he flips to Colorado 5-6 hours later. During last night's show, he committed back to Ole Miss. Same day. That just shows you how crazy recruiting can be. So keep in mind, we're still dealing with 17-year-olds and anything can happen. That's just a great reminder. That one's extreme, I will grant you. But that is a reminder of how recruiting can go. And that's a top 100 recruit. That's one of the best defensive linemen in the class of 27. And that's a young man that there'd be 40 schools, 50 schools that would gladly take his phone call right now. I guarantee it. 6'3", 270 pounds, and he can move. Hopefully he's got it figured out and he's settled with Ole Miss. But, hey, it's a long way until National Signing Day. All right, now down through the list, and there is absolutely no particular order here with this. Jackson West, tight end out of Utah. He's staying home to play for the Utes. Sam Lejeune out of Poplarville, Mississippi, one of the best programs down in the southwest corner of that state. He had a very unusual recruitment, Florida State, Auburn, Cal, and Washington for a Mississippi kid. And he ends up with the Florida State Seminoles. He announced early this evening. Lex Malangai, 6'3", 350 pounds out of Mater Dei in the greater Los Angeles area, one of the most famous programs in the country, if not the most, has decided to play for the Oregon Ducks. I saw him last year at a 5-on-5 tournament. That kid has some of the heaviest hands you're going to see. Sheldon Isaac, a young man that I know well. He played with Coastline Stars, the 7-on organization that I help represent. He is going to play for USF. Brian Hartzline gets a very athletic young man out of Macomb, Mississippi. Antonio Berry, who I talked about a minute ago, he committed to Ole Miss. That is another big fish out of the state of Mississippi. Staying home. He's from Tupelo, one of the best programs. You got to give credit to everybody in the Ole Miss staff. They have really done a good job in state. Brody Rudnicki, quarterback out of Folsom, California. He is going to Cal. Finn Walker, defensive lineman out of Oak Ridge. He is going to Kansas State. Oak Ridge is just outside of San Antonio, 6'6", 245. Xavier Brown, wide receiver, 6'1", 170 pounds out of Bishop McNamara, just outside of D.C. He's going to Wake Forest. Jaden Bibbs, a corner, 5'10", 175 pounds out of Coppell High School, just outside of Dallas. He is going to Utah. Ahmad Sykes, running back out of Louisiana at Grant High School, is going to Tulane. And again, I already mentioned Shoemaker, but again, that just blows my mind. In the same day, he made two different decisions. So that's kind of the rundown of what's going on with some of the commits. But here's a couple other things that are going on. I'm already hearing rumors behind. I know this won't surprise anybody, but I'm going to announce it. I'm already hearing rumors about kids flipping, that there's a couple different guys. I'm obviously not going to divulge the schools, but we could see something in the next couple of months because the kids they missed on at one spot and they're short at a spot, et cetera, et cetera. And I expect several players that are prominent, top 200 recruits, to take visits this fall. Just remember this. Some of it will be in the secrecy of darkness. Some of it will be, oh, wait a minute. Who is that over there? They're standing on the sideline at a game and they're like, yeah, I went and visited, but there was no smoke about it. Well, we're going to see a little bit of everything with that. And that's just part of recruiting in today's era. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but just keep in mind, we've got all these commitments this week. We're going to have a whole bunch next week. Obviously, again, the whole deal with Rivals having their July 1st bash, if you will, with a bunch of commitments live. I assume it's going to be on their YouTube channel. That's great. But we're going to see a lot of different things. And I have this in the chat. I'll get to it in a little bit as well and go into it more. Cypher and Fielder are two kids at Carrollton High School. Fielder's 28, Cypher's 29. They both committed to Miami tonight. We'll be talking more about them. Fielder's a big offensive lineman who's tremendous. Cypher is arguably the best quarterback in the class of 29. So that class is already going crazy. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to kind of read off some of the kids that are committed in the class of 2028 here recently, because it's a lot more than I thought. I checked it just a little bit ago. And in the last week and a half, several 2028 kids have committed to major programs. These aren't just like sort of good players, but here's the last couple of weeks. Chance Archangel out of Westgate in New Iberia, Louisiana, big-time edge. A&M's not messing around. They're already going ahead and going after the 2028 kids. 6'3", 240. He's going to play for the Aggies. Owen Davies, arguably the best kicker in the class of 2028 from famed Brentwood Academy. He's going to Notre Dame. Chase Brown out of Leonard High School, just south of Tampa. That's a high school I know well. 6'2", 165 pounds. He committed to Florida State. That kid's going to be a corner. Love his game. Joe Fitzgerald out of Catholic Memorial, West Roxbury, Massachusetts. Going to stay home. Linebacker, 215 pounds. He's going to play for the Boston College Eagles. Cincinnati gets Jackson Austin out of Xenia, Ohio, tight end, 6'4", 210. Bama gets Braylon Gibbs out of Knoxville Catholic, a cornerback, 6'2", 175, right out of the backyard of one of their rivals. Well done. Doyle Smith, St. Francis Academy, a cornerback out of Baltimore, one of the best programs in the country, commits early to Iowa. Now, Iowa has been lights out coaching DBs for a while, but they don't normally get kids out of St. Francis. Congrats to them. Carter Petrie out of St. Joseph School in Buffalo, New York, kicker, 6'1", 185 pounds, commits to Penn State. And Notre Dame also gets Julius Jones' second son, his first son, Julius Jones Jr., committed to Notre Dame as well. But Andre is also going to Notre Dame, safety class of 2028 from St. Thomas Aquinas, just like his brother is going there. Ole Miss gets Latedrick Moward out of Macomb, Mississippi. Actually, I heard about this kid yesterday. He's supposed to be the truth. He's the next player out of that program. They always have kids. So Ole Miss getting started on the 28 class. Elijah Reeves out of Mountain View High School, just outside of Atlanta, wide receiver, 6'1", 180. Going to Georgia Tech. They're getting started after a great class so far this year in 27. Tavon Bell out of Northeastern High School in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, tight end, 6'5", 205. Staying home. He's going to play for the North Carolina State Wolfpack. And I already mentioned Quelly Fielder, class of 28, offensive tackle out of Carrollton, Georgia. He was one of my favorite players at the Atlanta Under Armour camp back in February. He is a dude, great guy. Miami scored there. That's a kid that will play very early, even though Miami has a tremendous roster. Trust me, that is not a normal football player. When we come back, we're going to talk BYU's fans talking smack about Notre Dame. There was a post I read that was hilarious. It's unbelievable, but we'll get into that. And then we're going to jump into the Michigan schedule. I have some comments and some thoughts about Michigan. That is next right here on the Portal Podcast. All right. Do you support teams really throwing down, talking smack when they have a major team coming to their house and the team's fans that are talking smack are honestly not national title contenders? Straight up, no, BYU is not a national title contender. They are not. If BYU fans want to come on and argue that, let's see your NFL roster. And let's see your what they score combined 14 points last year against Texas Tech. Yeah, right. I don't get it. But I was awarded to a post about a BYU fan picking on Notre Dame, saying that A, CJ Carr wasn't any good. B, their schedule wasn't any good. Anybody in the Big 12 talk about somebody's schedule, go fly a kite. And then finally, who is BYU to talk smack to anybody about national championship or anybody being any good? So I want to use that as a barometer. Obviously, I'm picking on BYU, and I'm straightforward. I am 100% because it's a comedy show for them to pick on anybody. But while they're a good football program and I love their head coach, they do not have enough talent to win a title. They do not. So what do you say if it's a team? Let me give you another example. Michigan State's down right now, but I'll use them from a traditional standpoint. There are a lot of times they're a 7-9 win team, and their fan base can get pretty rowdy. I've been to some Michigan State games, home and away. That's a tough crowd, but they know their place. They're not really calling out people. They might say we might win a game here or there, blah blah blah. They don't talk about national titles. They kind of know that where they're at on the pecking order. And there's other schools you can talk about that. Arizona State fans would be similar. They don't normally talk about titles. We might beat you in a game, but they're not going to talk down your program. Where are fans on this topic? Because there are some fan bases that are more annoying than others, but it's one thing if an LSU fan talks smack, it's LSU. Ohio State fan, yeah, they got some incredibly annoying fans. It's Ohio State. Plus they have like 80,000 students there. They just got a lot of boosters. So what do you think about it? I'm going to kind of leave those things, sit there for a minute. We'll go through the chat. I got all kinds of stuff to get through. Then we'll talk Michigan as well. Salty, what's going on, man? CJ Seifert to Miami. That makes me sad. I thought he should be Irish. No, I'm not too worried about 2029 recruiting, but congrats to Miami for getting a head start. They've got their 28 and 29 quarterbacks committed already at Miami. It's crazy. Swanton, rivals just updated their scores. Notre Dame slips past Miami to snag number 2. I'll have to go look at that after the show. That's interesting. Jay Melvin, Brian, I've heard you say there's a lot of politics in recruiting rankings. Could you explain more by what you mean by that? A couple of different things. Number one, location is everything. Let me give you an example. I'll go to a game and I won't even contact like some of my other media member friends that like live in the area. I know where they're going to be. We all do the same thing. We go to games where there's as many elite players as possible. So it's quote unquote one-stop shopping. Is that fair to the kid that lives out in the sticks of Georgia or Arkansas or at a small town in Utah? No. But financially speaking, I can get more stories, more podcasts at a covering like Orlando Jones or Tampa Jesuit or going to Thomas County Central or going to Buford. Just that school alone, I can get 5-10 interviews technically, or get scoop on 5 to 10 kids, get comments from a coach that's been in state title games. That's part of the politics. Secondarily, a lot of the kids that don't live close to where some of the camps are, like early in the process, a lot of people don't know this, but the under our camps start down south and then they work their way around. They'll end up in the Northeast at the end with Baltimore, New Jersey. Those kids up in the Northeast by ESPN rankings, they really go by who they've seen live. And I get it. It's a big deal. But traditionally, the Northeast kids get ranked higher later than the other kids down south because they don't get seen first. That's part of the politics. These are things that are just unavoidable, but they're very true. Let's see here. Salty, I've heard whispers that Caden Henderson is flippable. These whispers seem a bit more specific than the usual assumptions. Until papers are signed, everybody could flip. Have you heard the same? I haven't heard anything, and I haven't tried. It's only a few days after Caden decided on A&M. I wouldn't put a lot of stock in anything that's said right now. The ink's not dry on him even committing, really. Hurricane Hicks. Notre Dame has an outstanding class. They do. It's about to get better. Salty, should Notre Dame feel good about Simien? I've heard that his high affinity is for Notre Dame, but distance is the challenge. His mom may have dispelled it. His parents want Notre Dame. That's not unusual. The parents want Notre Dame like 90% of the time in these recruitments because of the degree. I would assume he's going to Notre Dame because like Wiltfong and all these people are putting in predictions. And I read the article with his comments on Irish Breakdown. It seemed pretty obvious to me that he's favoring Notre Dame right now. What's going on? Sunlover, thanks for the Ole Miss getting some love. Really proud of their home state recruiting this year. Hey, man, Ole Miss is like that whole staff has done a really good job. They deserve credit. I'm telling you, the back office in these like A&M, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, you're not winning. I don't care who your head coach or staff is, unless the people in the back office are congruent. You got to know what's going on and when and how to present your information, when to bring kids in, know the names of all the aunts and uncles. Like, it's such a precise process. It is so important for those back office folks. Fred G. Rebs, anything on Tay Walden Jr., speculation he may commit to Ole Miss. I haven't spoken to Tay in the last couple of days. I actually need to send a message to him, to be honest. But I'm assuming he's going to wait till July to commit unless he's just going to pop. He might be one of the guys. I don't know if you were here, Fred, when this was going on, but I'll mention it again now. Rivals is doing something on July 1st where they're having like 10 kids. Maybe Tay's one of them. I'm not sure. That are announcing live. I can look in and I'll put it on tomorrow night's show. I'll speak with him in some capacity between now and then. I'll find out what's going on, but it's hard to say what's going to happen with these kids. It really is. He could change his mind a couple of times too. Salty. The 5-for-5 rule has added another year to players not already on their 5th or more year. Notre Dame needs linebackers in this class, but if Drake Bowen and or the King stay, does that fix the need? I would be shocked if either one of those is back in 2027 for Notre Dame. I think Jaden Osbury, the young man who, I believe his dad's the AD I think his dad's the AD at LSU, is the most likely. And then there could be some other kids too that are going to be 5th-year seniors that transfer in. Now, I'm not real worried about Notre Dame finding linebackers, especially since Marcus Freeman used to play backer. They'll have no problem with that. Salty, Simien to Notre Dame. Take that, Texas A&M. Simien did not bite on the don't visit Notre Dame offer. Bobby Byers. Henderson was all Notre Dame until A&M slid that big check in front of him. Texas is tossing money around like water. So are a lot of schools. Notre Dame's throwing around a lot of money too. Clontarf 1679. I think Simien is Notre Dame. Notre Dame will pay up more than they like given the Henderson result if needed. Salty. When a valued recruit does not commit, such as Henderson, do schools increase the NIL on remaining recruits of similar value? It depends on the need. That's all need assessment. Like linebacker is arguably the least valuable position on the field. It has the least impact anymore. So I don't think a lot of teams are going to pay up for it. But at the same time, that's more money you have to technically apply either to another linebacker or move that money elsewhere, maybe even to the portal. It all depends. Bobby, I think he's going to Notre Dame as well. And if they get Parks from Chicago, I put their line as 1A, 1B with A&M. Be pretty close. A&M is about to get a few guys too, by the way. A&M is not done. They are not. When is Roman Igwebuike committing? I've heard two different dates. I've heard it was going to be this week, and I've also heard it was going to be in July. So I'm not sure. That's a great question, actually. Clontarf, Salty, if what they say about Henderson's dad being mad, then it seems he'd be flippable. Hurricane Hicks, Lawrence may be heading to Texas. Yeah, I believe that Neiman Lawrence is going to be a Horn. Bobby Byers, I wish I knew. We need him, and word is he loved his visit to Notre Dame and checks all the boxes. I assume you're talking about Simien. I wish Miami would go after Sparks. Are you talking about Parks or Sparks? Salty, I find it curious that autocorrect sometimes translates NIL as anal. What does autocorrect know that I don't, although maybe I suspect? Let's see. Johnny McClain, 8257. Good show, Brian. Thanks. Thank you. I appreciate you stopping in. Please, everybody, like and subscribe if you have not already. Love doing these kinds of shows. Hurricane Hicks, Miami has 3-4 spots left. They may grab another tackle. I imagine Miami's in flip mode. I know there's some guys, all the major programs, Notre Dame, Miami, A&M, it's Florida, etc. They're probably all going to lose a guy, but I bet they all flip somebody too. It's kind of nature of the beast. But Miami's is one of the best. That Oregon's another one really good at that. Brian is the man for doing this show and interacting with chat like this. Thank you. I appreciate that. I try to do the best I can with it. A lot of these Chicago's guys like to stay close to home. Parks' parents want him to go to Notre Dame. Plus, they can attend his home games. If he goes to Oregon, that's not happening. Oh, they'd fly him out, but that's 5 hours. There's more kids doing it, though. Bobby, with NIL money, they could easily afford to travel. 100%. True, but some places are major culture shock. From Chicago to Oregon is shock for real. Now, that is true. But, again, we got, Oregon gets kids from Alabama now. The culture thing is just not as big a deal. Parks had a visit update, but he's not given a date. He's not given anything. He's just going to make an announcement. Nobody's going to know what that kid's doing until he does it. Jay Melvin, Brian, I had no idea that T.Y. Hilton played at FIU with Mario Cristobal. It seems like Mario built up something good at FIU. Why in the world would they fire him? He had a really bad season after having a good year, if I remember correctly. Things were up and down. But that's just part of the game. Let's see. Bobby, and the players can contact schools, but schools can't contact players. It's decision time. It is true. For the record, Monday began the dead period in college football. What does the dead period represent? That means you can't take unofficial or official visits. Coaches can't go to your school, et cetera, et cetera. So you can make phone calls, and kids can obviously announce, but that's the extent of it. I have a feeling Parks is waiting till Simien makes his decision on Friday. Could be. I wouldn't be surprised if Parks did something with Rivals on July 1st. That's possible. That would just be next week. Hurricane Hicks, Cypher is rumored to flip to 28. I wouldn't be surprised by that. If you remember Juju Lewis, same high school, Carrollton, he was a kid that reclassed. So it's possible. Salty, there are over 50 in the chat. Hit the like button. That's right. Make sure you hit the like. Truly appreciate that. Swanton. He's been radio silent for what I've seen. I think he's really having a hard time choosing. If he was mind made up and set on Oregon, he would have made a date following the visit. Could be. Big 12 teams have a weird chip on their shoulder. I'm not fazed by it. I just look at them like a yapping chihuahua. Post of the day. Very true. Very, very true. Let's see. Bobby agreed. Oregon may be offering more money But Notre Dame has the coach and the players that he played with and against in high school. I'm sure his family wants him closer to home. Let's see. Got a lot of people in the chat tonight. This is great. Leon, Salty, we had so much fun Friday in Boston. My wife, Country France versus Norway. Sounds like you just love the soccer, my man. Let's see. Caden Moss to Kentucky. Cole Unthank. Kentucky? I'll have to see that to believe it. Maybe you're right, but I highly doubt it. Irish Eyes 77. I heard most families love Marcus Freeman. That's very true. Bobby Byers, because they both visited multiple times, so all these guys are building a rapport. And those are the two last pieces that Notre Dame has placed as a priority. Notre Dame is forming the best O-line, D-line in decades. They're doing a great job recruiting that spot for sure. Swanton, but they're on opposing lines. Just personally don't think Simien committing affects Parks positively or negatively, unless I'm out of the loop on them being secret best friends. They don't live very close to each other. One's in Louisiana, one's in Illinois. Osbury is the least of the three. He needs another year in football. The other two don't. Very true. I could also just not be picking up what you're putting down, Bobby. Fred G. Rebs, anything on Alvin Mosley? He's making his decision on Saturday. You will probably be very happy. We're going to live stream it on Locked On Ole Miss, and I'm going to live stream it as well on the portal. I'm not sure on the exact time, but 5 o'clock-ish, 6 o'clock-ish Eastern time, something like that. Maybe it's Central. Check out Locked On Ole Miss and everything that Steven's got over there. He'll let you guys know Thursday or Friday. Fred, if Ole Miss misses on DGG, do you think the chances of them trying to flip Ty Keys, that's going to be hard? Well, Keys is committed to Miami. That ain't going to be easy. DGG's not going to Ole Miss from what I heard. That's going to be Tennessee most likely or Ohio State. But there are other running backs, and they could take a portal guy. Running back, if you're going to miss somewhere, that's probably the easiest one to replace. And there are plenty of good running backs in the area. They may get somebody late. Who knows? Sharon's locker room Blumpkin. Brian, I know lots of teams negative recruiting against Notre Dame. Have you heard of Notre Dame negative recruiting against other teams? I'm sure there are. It depends on one's definition. Here's my definition of negative recruiting. Either A, making stuff up, or being really mean-spirited, like saying things like it's a terrible school, or the only thing you do is just talk about the negatives, like the location of the school. That's negative recruiting. Saying that for instance, your business program or your English program is better than theirs and a kid wants to major, I don't consider that negative. I don't think Notre Dame really has to negative recruit. It's kind of like Miami. It's a really good school and it's in Miami. There are certain schools that don't have to do that as much, but teams often will use that against Notre Dame because it's a private school. It's a little bit different. So teams will kind of go after Notre Dame collectively. Bobby Byers, I just subscribed. I'm a fan. Appreciate it, man. Truly appreciate it. Again, we do these podcasts Monday through Thursday on a rule, but since it's recruiting season, I've extended into Sunday nights as well. Again, 9 Eastern, we have these podcasts every day. Swanton Bomb. Brian will answer, but Notre Dame notoriously does not negative recruit. They just try to sell why Notre Dame is better for the player's entire life. Yeah, they sell the 4 years for 40. That's an old Lou Holtz line. And it's very important to agree. Joe Long, I also just subscribed. Good Notre Dame intel. Glad you came in, brother. Hope to see you again soon. Bobby, I'm from South Bend, born and raised. I've lived there. The weather is a little better where I'm at now. Salty, there isn't much more of a culture shock than Canada to Alabama. Yeah, that's pretty rough. Charlie Partridge is my favorite hire yet by Freeman. Irish Eyes 77. He's a good coach. Bleiberg. Salty, you have no idea what you're talking about in regards to Canada. My wife is from Canada, and outside the weather at Alabama is not much different. And that goes for the majority of America. Interesting. I've never been to Canada. Leon, Miami's class is almost done. Only 22 or less So it's no way they can finish top 3. It depends on how you look at it, and it depends on who they think is going to leave. They could add somebody late because some guys are going to turn pro. That could change. Salty, Weiberg, I stand corrected, sir. I didn't know they were so similar. Rivals only counts top 17, I think. That's interesting. Salty, Lionel, is your wife French or Norwegian? Bobby, if you get a plate of Frankie's barbecue over on Washington Street in front of Parks, he's done. That's hilarious. Sharon's locker room Blumpkin. Are all these D-line recruits we are talking about all starting at 7 figures now? I don't know. I don't ask that question. And even if I did, I wouldn't answer. But I try to stay out of that stuff. I can assume that a lot of them end up there. I'm sure the schools don't start there. But some of the kids, yeah. Like the 5-star kids are probably $1 million or more for the elite kids, especially like a pure pass rusher or a kid like Parks, I bet, has been offered $1 million because he's a pure nose guard. If you've got a specialty, man, it's really important. Leon says, French Salty. Swanson, that profile pic and name is wild, Sharon. It is pretty wild. Let's talk about Michigan's football schedule. Have a little fun with it. I think their schedule is pretty interesting here. September 5th, Western Michigan. Right out of the gate, they play just a local team. No big deal, but then the next week it gets real. September the 12th, the Oklahoma Sooners, John Metier and company, Terrell Harris, the new transfer in for Virginia. They've got a really good young offensive line. That's going to be a really interesting game. Does Bryce Underwood step up in that game? I don't know. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. September 19th, they got UTEP. September 26th, they have Iowa. So the first 4 are at home. Iowa's no slouch. We'll see what they can do, but it's year 1 for that coaching staff. You know, Whittingham's a really good coach. He's got some really good coaches on his staff. But, like, at what point do we sit there and say, you know what? I don't know if year 1's going to work out for them. It's a lot to ask for a first-year coach at a school like Michigan. I mean, it's a lot to ask. I'm curious to see what they can do in the Oklahoma game and then in the Iowa game. They can't lose both. That much I do know. The fans would lose their mind. But as the saying goes, you know what? You got to roll with the punches, and maybe Michigan will struggle a little bit. I wouldn't be shocked if they lost both, especially since Iowa is so disciplined. But anyway, part of it, I think Jason Beck, the offensive coordinator, and Jay Hill, the defense coordinator, they need to be on their game for Michigan. Those 2 guys are very, very highly rated as coaches. We're going to see what they can do. October 3rd is kind of interesting as well. It'll be their 5th game in a row. It's at Minnesota. I don't expect Michigan to lose that. Minnesota's quarterback's pretty good. Running back's pretty good. I just don't think they have the players outside the numbers, but we'll see. My only 2 questions on the first part of the schedule are as follows. Oklahoma contest. Is it a make or break? I don't think so, but if Michigan loses, they can't get beat 20-3. Like, their offense has to look better. And in particular, I don't know how they're going to really operate because I don't think they've got a ton of receivers, but they have to be able to throw the ball, and it has to be aesthetically pleasing. I know that's an awkward statement for traditional fans, but I'm being serious because Oklahoma, while they're a really good defense, you just can't have a game like last year. Like, they could barely complete a pass on Oklahoma last year. But Bryce Underwood is a freshman. Now he's a sophomore. It's at home. You have a better coaching staff. They need to be able to throw the ball. Second question, Iowa and Minnesota shall not be easy. Just want to make that statement. But does anybody think Iowa or Minnesota might beat Michigan? Just something to think about. Second set, and this is where it gets really interesting. Their first and only bye is October 10th, and then they will have 7 consecutive games. They go like this. October 17th is Penn State. October 24th, the Indiana Hoosiers. Nick Saban's birthday, October 31st, at Rutgers. November 7th, Michigan State. So it's the rivalry game. You know, Michigan State is way down. You got to be up for that. And then the next week they go all the way to the West Coast. They play in Eugene against the Oregon Ducks. That's tough. November 21st, UCLA. That's kind of a wild card, and it's a sandwich game. UCLA and Bob Chesney, if they're going to play like they're recruiting, that could be a really good game. And then the next week they travel to Columbus, Ohio to play the Ohio State Buckeyes. So again, you've got Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State with the latter two on the road. So you got 3 teams that are contending for a title in the back half of your schedule during a 7-game stretch. That's pretty tough. Here are the questions and comments that I have. 7 straight after the bye, that's obviously not ideal, but that's kind of where we're at in college football right now. 3 possible title teams, just in that 7-game stretch. Not many teams are going to face that. Number 5, road trips to each coast. Now, Rutgers is not a team that should beat Michigan, but then the next week you come home to Michigan State. That's another physical game. Then you go to Oregon on the other coast. That's tough. And then finally, just the question mark after this, Bryce Underwood. How good do we think he is going to be, and what do we expect him to do this year if Michigan's going to win 8 or more games? Do we think Bryce is a guy that can get it rolling? Do we think that he's a guy that is going to take major steps in understanding scheme, post-snap reads? I have no idea. Like, again, Jason Beck's a really good coordinator. He's really good. He was at BYU. He comes to Michigan. He was at Utah prior. I think he played at Utah, if I remember right. But he's been around the system that Kyle Whittingham's been a part of for a long time. He's adjusted to some so-so players and made it work. He's been around some so-so players when he played. He's seen a little bit of everything. They've got more talent at Michigan, though. How will they push the envelope, especially in the passing game? I'm curious. I have no doubt that Michigan will run the football pretty good, but I need to see them make something happen in regards to not just running the football, but like deep shots, not just little crossing routes, but corner routes. Like, they've got to be able to extend the game in a different way and change defenses from just putting an extra guy in the box. They've got some really good running backs. They've got some really good offensive linemen. And Bryce, I think he'll run a little more this year. But that passing game has to take steps forward and not just designed one-on-one plays where he literally scans the field and has to make decisions. If they can't do that, there's 7-5 to 9-3 team that even if they got into the playoff at 9-3 would probably get bounced really quick. The end-all be-all for Michigan, because I know they're going to be well-coached and they'll be fairly disciplined, even though it's year one, is Bryce Underwood making post-snap reads. Straightforward. That's just the way I see it. If anybody has any comments on that, fire away now. Or if you're watching this later on, fire away there as well. Back in the chat here. Swan, speaking of Sharon, yeah. Oof. Contar, I assume you're not a Michigan kind of guy. Bobby, you think Iowa could give them a game? I would not be surprised. Remember now, this is first year. It's first year. That's a big deal. If Kyle Whittingham and his staff do not prepare properly, I mean, you kind of know what Iowa's going to do. They're going to run cover 2 for the most part. They're going to play zone in the run game. And they're probably going to be fairly conservative in the pass game. Have they gotten a little better at receiver and quarterback? Yeah. But if you screw around and have an extra turnover or something, man, that's tough. Oklahoma, I'm picking Oklahoma to beat Michigan, for the record. They got their same coordinators back. They got a lot of the key defensive guys back, same quarterback. But we'll see. Blyberg, Salty, it's all the same. Cities, suburbs, and rural. Outside of some small cultural things, it's all the same. However, Canada is fairly godless, and they don't attend church. Interesting. Salty, Lionel, wow, a French-Brazilian marriage. No shortage of passion there. That's wild. Sharon was a wild guy, so I think it's fitting. Always got to rub salt in the Michigan Wolverines' wounds. That's hilarious. College football rivalries. They do, as they say, run deep. Iowa can do it, and since they're playing in Minnesota, that's a risky game as well. I agree. Hurricane Hicks, Iowa is always a threat to win, but on the road would be surprising. Yeah, Iowa at the Big House. I mean, they've done it before, but that would be tough. Bobby Byers, 4 or 5 losses for Michigan. He says easy. I'm assuming you are not a Bryce Underwood believer. Mexico is having trouble with Chichia, and the game is at, I don't know what, I think you meant to say something else. Should Mexico be worried? Michigan will gain confidence playing first four at home and maybe a bump from Whittingham, but I see them 9-3 at best and maybe 8-4. That's exactly where I think too. I think 8-4 is the most likely outcome, but better get them year one. Leon, Salty, not Mexico, already secure one place. Salty, if Bryce Underwood doesn't figure it out, Michigan could lose all of its prominent games. I'm not confident he will. Reading schemes has been the graveyard of many heralded high school quarterbacks. No doubt about it. Leon, Brian, what's going on with FSU recruiting offensive line and defensive line? Defensive line, they're fine. They got 4 guys. Offensive line is an atrocity to mankind. 0. They have 0 offensive line commitments. Seriously? It's just unbelievable. Salty, Lionel, that's a good point. Hurricane Hicks, Materia is healthy and he is a game changer. He can be. Can he stay healthy though? Swanton, it might be hard to find Underwood believers even amongst Michigan fans. I've read some discussions on Michigan boards. Not all of them are Bryce Underwood fans. You're not wrong. Sharon's locker room Blumpkin. Brian, you said recently BYU is starting to spend more. Haven't noticed them climbing the recruiting rankings per se. Are they offering money but not landing? I think there's a couple of things at play there. They just got a kid out of Georgia, a corner that's pretty good. They're getting some Texas, Arizona, California, and all that. But you got to remember what kind of school they are. And they don't want to bend as much as some other schools. Like Notre Dame's bent more, Vanderbilt definitely has, etc. The culture at BYU, like they don't want people to cuss, like literally, like it's a big deal. Football players are going to cuss. It's going to be hard to get some of the kids from where I live down south to go there. Like their rules on sex, their rules on religion and all that stuff. It's going to be hard. So I think they're still going to do better with kids in Cali, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, those areas, but they'll get a few kids from around the country and they, they'll probably do some portal stuff. And I think they can retain better, but I still think the JUCO ranks and the Mormon missions and keeping guys that are older is their best path. Being older, especially in the trenches, is a way BYU can always be relevant. Peter Murphy, Mexico 0. Oh, Czechia 44th minute. Okay. Nothing. Swanton, FSU might have to start pulling kids in from campus. Holy crap. 0 offensive linemen, man. I mean, that's brutal. Czechoslovakia now calls itself Czechia. How do you pronounce that? I mean, I never heard of that. I didn't know that, but if you're being serious, that's interesting. I'm curious to know your thoughts on as to why USC killed the historical rivalry with Notre Dame. I think using the word USC is very strong. I think the key here, obviously, their head coach is a coward. He tries to blame it on everybody else anytime somebody goes wrong. If you haven't noticed, I am not a Lincoln Riley fan. He understands passing game, but he doesn't understand how to run a physical practice, and that's why they get beat up. And it's also one of the reasons that they lose to Notre Dame. Even when they had the first overall pick in the draft, they struggled against Notre Dame and barely won when Notre Dame didn't play well. His teams just aren't physical enough, and Notre Dame's another very physical team. He's never going to win a title. He's better off in the NFL where he should be an offensive coordinator for Denver or something. He is not a great head coach. He's very average. Most overpaid guy in college football resides in Los Angeles. Czechia. Interesting pronunciation. All right. Well, I am going to wrap it up here. I appreciate everybody stopping in. We will do the same thing tomorrow. Hoping to have some more intel on what's going on with some of these commitments. I'll talk more. I'll probably just put it up on the page. Some of the latest predictions and my thoughts about why. Some I might disagree with a little bit more. And we'll go over our schedule again tomorrow for somebody. I don't know which team. Probably A&M. I consider doing it, but I started talking to somebody about Michigan, and it got me in the mood to talk about the Wolverines. So I'll go that direction. It's interesting. But anyway, I hope everybody has a good night. If you have not already, please like and subscribe. Truly appreciate it. Everybody have a fun one, and we will see you again tomorrow on the Portal Podcast.